Coming up, we explore one of Disney's Deluxe DVC resorts, Disney's Saratoga Springs. Disney presents Beyond the Kingdoms. Today's episode of Beyond the Kingdoms is proudly sponsored by SmallWorldVacations.com, authorized Disney vacation planners. Their team of knowledgeable agents have been creating the magic for over 20 years, and they can book your next trip to Walt Disney World. Just visit their website to get a free quote. Small World Vacations, where the magic begins.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Sunday main show of Beyond the Kingdoms. Like always, I'm your host David, and today I'm returning to the best rooms at a Disney hotel series. Now, I've already covered the All-Stars and the newly reimagined Coronado Springs, but today we're moving up a step to a deluxe resort, an entire DVC one in fact, Disney's Saratoga Springs. Now, DVC properties can get a little bit complicated, so I thought it best to start with Saratoga Springs because it's an entry level and pretty straightforward. Now, if you're new to this channel, welcome, and make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. But let's not waste any more time and jump right into today's episode.
This resort has a long and complicated history. As it stands today, Disney's Saratoga Springs Resort opened on May 17, 2004. But accommodations and other types of lodgings have been in place in this area since the 1970s. But more on that later. Saratoga Springs was the 7th Disney Vacation Club resort to open and located in the Disney Springs Resort area. And this is actually one of the largest DVC properties at a sprawling 65 acres. By comparison, it's only a little bit smaller than Disneyland Park in California. There are a total of 1,200 guest rooms at this resort, ranging from deluxe studios to 3-bedroom villas. And one of my favorite features is the additional 60 Treehouse Villas. Now, despite the large piece of land this stretches, there are very few dining options at Saratoga Springs. With only one quick service, one table service, and 3 additional bars and lounges, some of which that serve food as well. The lack of dining is simply because the units come equipped with full kitchens. So this is really a resort for those groups who want to cook their own meals or will enjoy restaurants at the theme parks and Disney Springs. But there is a good amount of recreation here to make up for it. There are a total of 4 pools, a 24-hour gym, a spa, and something I've not talked about a lot in the past, a golf course. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Disney's Saratoga Springs Resort.
Disney's Saratoga Springs has a really interesting history because this was originally part of a community of townhouses built by Disney in the 1970s. It was later developed into some vacation villas before DVC existed, and then in the 1990s, this was the Disney Institute.
Between 1973 and 1975, there were lots of development and construction projects starting in this area that is now known as Disney Springs. While the Lake Buena Vista Shopping Village was being built, a series of townhouses were constructed across the lake, along with 60 unique treehouse villas. Originally, this was going to be a real living community instead of a resort hotel, and it would showcase energy-efficient housing concepts in beautifully manicured cul-de-sacs. But since that introduces some really complicated local politics, Disney decided to convert the townhouses into hotel accommodations by the early 1980s. Throughout the decade, it was known as many different things. The Village Resort, the Disney Village Resort, Walt Disney World Village, you get the idea. But by the mid-1990s, the villas became part of the Disney Institute. This idea was conceived by then CEO Michael Eisner. The concept was that guests would book anywhere from a 3-night stay to a week-long trip to this resort that included several different courses instead of visiting the theme parks. Guests could learn the mechanics behind producing film and television, take animation classes, or roll up their sleeves and indulge in some culinary lessons or even horticulture. It was meant to be a family vacation focusing on activities and education in a fun environment. something that should have gone over very well with the big old-school Epcot fans. But let's face it, people don't come to Disney World to learn how to cook. They come for the attractions and entertainment. While it was an optimistic and very clever idea, the Disney Institute only lasted a couple of years.
By the early 2000s, the property started to be reshaped and officially part of Disney Vacation Club. Now, while the main infrastructure of the resort lobby complex remained the same, the rest of the resort was updated and inspired by the real city of Saratoga Springs, New York.
Today, the resort is broken up into 5 main sections and an adjacent area for those Treehouse Villas. The 5 main building complexes are almost identical in terms of style. They just have different names. It does have a wonderful New England vibe to it, with the wood paneling on the exterior of the buildings and subtle touches here and there. But in some ways, I'm reminded of other resorts that look very similar but have a slightly different theme. The boardwalk, for example, comes to mind when focusing on those exterior aesthetics. But Saratoga really feels like a small community of apartments rather than hotel rooms. And that can work really well for those of you who want to escape the hustle and bustle of Disney World. And if you really just want to unwind. But most of all, the resort is big, with a total of 18 different buildings. And each complex has its pros and cons. The Springs is located right in the heart of the resort and across the carriage house. If you book, for example, a preferred deluxe studio like the one I'm in, you will be located in this area. This will put you close to both main pools, the main dining options, and transportation. Now, behind that, we have a row of buildings that are part of the paddock. These are pretty close to the resort's second main pool, which is quite good for toddlers. And the Paddock Grill is a quick service location right in the pool area as well. So this is a good Plan B option. Next, we have these 4 buildings that are part of Congress Park. This is a really interesting complex to request. First of all, this has the resort's only playground. It does sport its own quiet pool, but it also connects to the marketplace side of Disney Springs. Yes, you can walk from your room to the World of Disney store in just a couple of minutes. And since the walkway connects to one of the boat docks at Disney Springs, you can also easily catch a ride to the landing area, which features some of Disney Springs' best restaurants. Now, on the flip side, the only not-so-great complex to be in is the Carousel. These are those 2 buildings at the very back of the resort. You'll have to walk a bit to get to the pool or dining locations. But you will be one of the first bus drop-off points when you're coming back to the resort from the theme parks. The 5th building complex is known as the Grandstand. In some ways, it's the most scenic because you're completely surrounded by the golf course. But it's also in a really odd spot. It has its own quiet pool, and it's not too bad of a walk to the main carriage house. It's not great, it's not bad, it's just somewhere in the middle. Then finally, further away, you have the Treehouse Villas. From a location standpoint, these are very isolated. Now that can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. If you want to be removed from the crowds and engrossed with nature, it's a great option. But there is a downside if you're not driving, and that brings me to the point of transportation. Getting to the parks from Saratoga Springs is limited to the buses only. That is if you don't have your own car and you're sticking to Disney's transportation. Something to consider when requesting a building is the bus loop. When returning from the parks, the buses will ask passengers if anyone is staying at the grandstand, mainly because it's off of the main driveway. It's possible that if no one is going to the grandstand, the bus will drop off guests at the carousel first, but it will always work counterclockwise from there, hitting the paddock next, Congress Park, and then ending at the Springs. The same route applies in the morning when you're heading to the parks. This is why the Springs is considered preferred, because you won't waste time making more stops. You'll go straight to the parks from there. Now, if you're staying at one of the tree houses, you will go through this complete bus loop and then transfer to your own direct bus service from the Springs. Which is why I want to say that if you're booking one of these rooms, it's best if you have your own car, or you're going to opt for something like an Uber or a minivan, because that's a long-winded way of getting home from a long day at the theme park.
Let's now take a deeper look at the rooms. In many ways, this is the perfect introduction to DVC room categories because Saratoga Springs is very simple. You can start with a deluxe studio that accommodates up to 4. Then you can move your way up to 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and even a 3 bedroom grand villa. And Saratoga Springs has something really unique, known as the Treehouse Villas. But let's start with a deluxe studio.
The deluxe studios are at a mid-range size for Disney hotel standards at 355 square feet. It is one of the smallest in the deluxe range, but it's still bigger than most moderates and values. For comparison, a standard room at the Polynesian is 404 square feet, but these are one of Disney's largest rooms. Now, a standard room at a value resort like Pop Century is going to be much tighter at 260 square feet. The studios are on par with the standard rooms at Boardwalk and Yacht and Beach Club, which sit at 370 and 380 respectively. But unlike a standard room, you'll get a queen-size bed and a double sofa bed. And I've noticed that since this resort is a little bit older than, say, the new Grand Destino Tower, the beds are a little bit on the softer side, but still pretty high off the ground. Now, even though these studios only accommodate 4, like most standard rooms across Disney, they introduce a kitchenette, which is comprised of a mini fridge, a very small sink, and some cupboard space that comes equipped with basic plates and utensils. This came in handy for me when I had some extra food items to go after a meal at the Turf Club. The bathroom area is divided from the main sleeping area with a nice sized closet that comes with the safe. And the bathroom is a moderately spacious and standard tub-shower combo. It's a very straightforward room. It does the job, and if you like this more old-school New England aesthetic, it'll work well for you.
Now, to be really honest with you, I think there are better studios to get at Disney World, mainly because of location. If you're not a DVC member, I wouldn't book a studio here. I'd consider another deluxe resort or even just a moderate, because let's face it, that's going to be cheaper and sometimes even better. The studios are best for DVC members who want that simple room for 4 and who want to use a low number of points. So I think Saratoga Springs is really best for that larger group who want a vacation the way DVC was originally meant to be enjoyed. For those looking to stay for an extended period of time and who would consider using that kitchen so that you can cook some meals and stick to a budget. So let's look at the full range offered here.
Now, one of the reasons I'm covering Saratoga Springs first before other deluxe villas is that it's very easy to explain. Each category of villa is a simple step up from the previous one. For example, a 1-bedroom villa is pretty much 2 studio units combined into 1. On one side is the full-size kitchen that comes with a fridge, dishwasher, and stove. This is also the living room area that features a queen-size sleeper sofa. The main bedroom is essentially the other half, with a king-size bed and bathroom with a whirlpool tub and separate shower. The 2- and 3-bedroom units are almost the same thing. A 2-bedroom villa is just about the equivalent to having 3 studios combined together, and can comfortably accommodate up to 8 adults, while the 3-bedroom grand villa can sleep up to 12. Like I said, Saratoga is good for those really large groups. But I must briefly mention the Treehouse Villas, mainly because I remember staying in one of these many years ago when I was a really young boy, and it's seared in my memory. These freestanding units sit about 10 feet off the ground, and they're completely surrounded with trees and nature that you can beautifully take in with some large windows. The main reason I highlight this is because they go very overlooked, and in my opinion, they can be a great upgrade to the cabins at Fort Wilderness. The octagon shape of the Treehouse Villas are a little bit strange, but these can hold up to 9 guests, whereas the cabins can only sleep 6. And the Treehouse Villas have 2 bathrooms. Obviously, you're going to pay a lot more money to stay at one of these as opposed to the cabins, but I just want you to look at both and consider what works best for you and your family. Both of these are really off the radar and easy to miss. I know I mentioned that bus transportation to the tree houses are not great, but the same can be said for Fort Wilderness. Both are definitely best for guests traveling with their own cars.
Now, when it comes to dining, Saratoga Springs only offers a few restaurants. There's the main quick service at the Carriage House, along with the Turf Club, the resort's only table service. Each of the pools do have their own bars and a smaller quick service location. And like I said before, Saratoga Springs is really best for those who are going to cook themselves in their villas or who are going to spend more time dining at the parks. But for those of you looking for a simple and quiet meal at the hotel, here are some options.
In the main carriage house area of the resort, you'll find the Artist Palette. This is actually both a small shop and a quick service location, and it's open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The exact hours will vary, but generally speaking, this is open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. At breakfast, there's a nice pastry section, which can come in handy when you need a quick item before hitting the parks. For lunch and dinner, the Artist Palette focuses on flatbreads and sandwiches, like this huge Italian sub sandwich here. And there's of course a great selection of sweet treats like this classic cheesecake or this more decadent chocolate and peanut butter cupcake featuring Bullseye. Also in this same building, you'll find the resort's only table service restaurant, the Turf Club, which is only open for dinner. This is an extremely small, dark, and cozy restaurant. The menu is a collection of hearty staples like a grilled New York strip or the seared duck breast. While dining here, I had a great meal with excellent service, but the theming and ambiance is not like other resorts around Disney. In some ways, I felt like I wasn't at Disney at all. If you're looking to have a nice meal with your spouse or family, but don't want to venture into the theme parks, then might I suggest a quick boat ride to Disney Springs. This is perhaps one of the best features of staying here. Yes, dining at the resort is very limited, but you are just a few minutes away from a tremendous lineup of great restaurants. The boat dock to Disney Springs is located just outside the Turf Club. During my stay, I never waited more than 10 minutes to catch a boat, which drops you right off at the landing, the heart and soul of Disney Springs. This is another reason why I say Saratoga is best for those groups staying for a long period of time at Disney. I find that if you're only visiting for a long weekend and doing the parks from dawn until dusk, you may not have enough time for a side trip to Disney Springs. But when you need a break from the Magic Kingdom and you're staying for like 2 weeks, a romantic dinner at places like the Boathouse is a very easy thing to do when staying at this resort.
And finally, we have recreation, which is actually Saratoga Springs' strong suit. Aside from the pools and the arcade, this hotel offers a 24-hour gym, a spa, and best of all, a golf course.
Walt Disney World has not one, not two, but 4 different golf courses. The Lake Buena Vista Golf Course was built in 1972 and stretches around Saratoga Springs and even stretches to the nearby Old Key West and Port Orleans Riverside. This 18-hole course is a challenging country club-style golf course that stretches nearly 7,000 yards. You can book a tee time either online or by calling Disney directly. Of course, I will leave exact details for that in the description below. When booking online, you can select a date and time, and pricing can range anywhere from $29 per person to $85 per person, depending on the exact time. Golf carts are included in your greens fee and are equipped with a GPS system. And if you couldn't bring your own clubs, you can rent equipment directly from Disney as well at an additional cost. I am certainly not a golfer, but if someone in your family is, staying in such close proximity to the course could be a great advantage. Now, for the rest of us who don't golf, there's of course several pools to enjoy around Saratoga Springs. The High Rock Springs main pool is located right behind the carriage house and by the Springs complex. It's a great zero-entry pool and equipped with a water slide and very small splash pad for the toddlers. For the adults, there are several hot tubs dotted throughout, and a bar if you want to kick back a few drinks while enjoying the sun. Now, while both Congress Park and the Grandstand both have some small quiet pools, I must point out the paddock, because it somewhat feels like a second main feature pool. It is nowhere near as big as the one in the Springs, but it also has a water slide that kids will enjoy. And a more elaborate splash pad for the toddlers who still don't know how to swim. This is something to consider when requesting buildings again. And like the main pool, there is the Paddock Grill, which is a small quick service location serving up food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's a small menu, but it definitely does the job. If you're staying in this area and you don't want to walk all the way to Artist Point, this is another good place to grab a quick bite before getting on the bus. Overall, Saratoga Springs definitely has its charm. Of all the resorts I've stayed in, none have ever felt like this one in the sense that it's extremely quiet. Yes, you are much further away from the parks than, say, the Polynesian or Beach Club, but Saratoga Springs is great if you want a more old-school approach to Disney. If you're looking to stay for over a week's time and you want to feel like you have your own apartment, this will work very well for you. When you stay for such a long period of time, you may not be rushed to rope drop every single day, and you'll want to relax and reconnect with the family more. The only downside I'll mention right now is that I don't love the carpets inside the rooms, mainly because I'm enjoying Disney's new approach to their interiors. But while filming this, I discovered that the resort is undergoing a pretty extensive refurbishment, and I think all of the interiors in the rooms are getting an upgrade. Like I said, if you're a big group looking to book a villa, Saratoga Springs usually has the most availability, and it's one of the more cheaper deluxe villas. That lower price point may allow you to stay a few extra days and really enjoy Disney at its fullest. If you like quiet and secluded, Saratoga Springs can be a great choice for your next Disney vacation.
So there you have it, friends, my full guide to booking a room at Disney's Saratoga Springs Resort. This is definitely a hotel that goes under the radar. But if you're looking for something really removed from the crowds and something exceptionally quiet, then this is a good resort for you. And I hope this was an easy introduction into Disney Vacation Club.
Stay tuned next week for a special mini episode, continuing my Exploring Epcot series, with a look at the history and current version of Test Track. You won't want to miss it.
But before I leave you guys today, I just want to give a quick shout out and thanks to Small World Vacations for sponsoring today's video and for booking my stay, because without them, this wouldn't have been possible. If you're in the market for an expert Disney agent, I highly recommend them. And until next time, remember, if you can dream it, you can do it.